A justice system in chaos, prisons dangerously full. And so next week, thousands of prisoners will get out early after serving 40% of their sentence under new emergency measures to free up space. But there are concerns from some inside this system about who will get to go free. When this was announced a few days after the general election, there was essentially an admission from the government that bringing forward the release date for thousands of prisoners won't be popular. It's unpalatable, but we were told also unavoidable because of the scale of the crisis. It was said there'll be checks and safeguards, that it won't apply to everyone in prison, and crucially, we were told, sex offences will be excluded from the scheme.
Obviously, we've put in place a framework to ensure that we don't release those who create the greatest risk.
There will be exclusions. Sentences for sexual and serious violent offences will remain at 50%.
Now, though, a whistleblower working inside the probation service has told this programme about what he sees as a loophole. And he says it means some people who were jailed for sex offences will be released from prison early under this scheme.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Speaking anonymously, what we can say is he's a probation officer in the north of England. He told us about the case of a sex offender considered high risk who will soon be released 4 months early under the new scheme.
So there's things we're putting in place, but the clock's ticking all the time.
And when he checked the rules, he realised that case won't be a one-off. We've been told repeatedly that sex offenders won't be released early under this.
Well, indeed, it's a definite loophole to me. It doesn't fit with justice. It certainly doesn't fit with victim rights.
What he calls a loophole, although the MOJ refutes that description, will affect some prisoners serving time for crimes excluded from the early release scheme, like sexual offences, if they were also sentenced for another offence that does qualify, like theft or common assault. Complicated, yes, and piling more pressure on probation. Exclusive data obtained by Channel 4 News reveals for 18 consecutive months to this summer, the probation service was consistently working at around 120% capacity.
The probation service is already facing huge pressure, and I've described the efforts going on by hard-pressed probation officers as heroic. I think it's important to understand that Parliament has made the regulations out on how this works. The government has explained that this is not something they necessarily would have wanted to do. They had no choice but to implement this scheme.
The Ministry of Justice says it inherited a justice system in crisis, and without the early release scheme, there'd be no room to lock up dangerous criminals. For some, though, there's a concern the pressure will just shift to another part of the system.